Rik Heller joining us, the chairman and CEO of Wello, Inc., and the expert on infectious diseases that I wanted to talk to about. Well, I was reading this story, Rik. First of all, thanks for coming on.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me.
This was something that really surprised me, that there are a lot of infections that are caused. People are in the hospital. You'd think it'd be one of the cleanest places, but oftentimes people get infections at a hospital.
Well, both things are true. Hospitals are very clean, and by the way, they're cleaner, but that doesn't mean there's. It doesn't speak to the change in the population of harmful bacteria. And, it's a magnet that has patients coming in with intractable infections, and it has guests coming in. And we know that the guests, we who go visit the people in the hospital, are bringing this in because during the lockdown, very unpleasant time for all of us, during that lockdown period, hospital-acquired infections, also known as nosocomial infections, have gone down significantly. So we're bringing it in some measure.
So in other words, we're doing it to ourselves.
Yes, and the hospitals are there to cure, and we still need to have that mental health benefit of having our guest family friends from time to time, and usually very cautious in the ICUs where people are most susceptible.
We keep hearing about superbugs developing too, that our medicines are useless against, that these things have developed immunities, as we hear about COVID, for example, that it mutates and now the booster is not going to be as effective as the vaccine was this time, et cetera. But we hear about these superbugs that are developing.
The superbugs have always been around, getting stronger because we're doing, our cures are better for the ones that we can get to, but then that allows them in evolutionary terms to survive. The ones that do survive become the more intractable bugs. And so, yes, they are getting stronger and stronger, and that just means that they're harder to arrest with antibiotics. You'll find, though, that doctors and medicine in general is trying to restrain from antibiotics, or being, I should say, more cautious in the administration of antibiotics, just for that reason. So if you take an antibiotic and it didn't work, you might be part of, in that situation, the moment where some bad bugs have been bred. Certainly don't affect you, hopefully, but it didn't cure anything.
Rik Heller is our guest. He's the chairman and CEO of Wello, Inc., and an expert on infectious diseases.
Rik, what kind of things are being done now, and what kind of things can be done to try to curtail some of these infections?
Understanding of things. I think that the guest admission is a little bit more careful, and that's important. A lot of our hospitals are using equipment to determine whether somebody has a fever or not who are visiting, and that can make a big difference, particularly in very susceptible areas like ICUs. And we're in some neonatal ICUs and have stopped some people. The lack of education we have about what we call fevers is really just a matter of definition, and elevated temperatures that could be as low as 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit could be not necessarily a fever, but that elevated temperature is an indication of infection. So, we need to be a lot more aware of that and not take, the CDC is looking after public health, or actually more individual health at 100.4, 99.5 Fahrenheit, measured orally. So we need to be aware that if we're usually 97.7, like the average adult temperature, that when we're at about 99 degrees, something's going on inside of us and we could be spreading. And when we go in there a few hours later, it could get worse, and then we could shed a lot more virus or bacteria.
Rik, I'm curious, when we're talking about these viruses and infections you can pick up in a hospital, are we talking about something like a cold or a flu-type virus, or is this something much more serious?
Well, cold is often norovirus, what we call a cold, and we know about what that is not a norovirus, but anyway, we know what that is, COVID and coronavirus. And so we need to, so seriousness depends on the person and depends on the particular bug and combinations of that. Okay. So yes, a cold is not a good thing to ever, any kind of infection is never a good thing to bring to the hospital because it'll get amplified both by the personnel certainly the patients who are very susceptible at that moment. And then the multiple, the chance that you have RSV or you have flu and COVID, these things wind up in the emergency room. And it's not just COVID, it's all of a sudden a co-infection. And you can ask emergency room doctors what they see there, and it's not one COVID, it's usually 2 bugs.
This is Rik Heller. Rik, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.